Welcome to Family Matters, your host, Pete Mwanza. We're back again with another interesting discussion. We'll continue from where we left last time and we'll continue to talk about addiction. Today though, we'll be zeroing in on alcohol addiction and drug addiction. And with me in the studios, I have three distinguished guests. Some of them are veterans by now. You should know them very well. I'll ask them to introduce themselves for just about a minute.
Thank you, Pete. Solomon Michael Seringeji is my name. As usual, I'm always glad to participate in these sessions of Family Matters.
Welcome, Solomon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from where you're listening to across the world. My name is Asara Judith Marion, and I'm also happy to be here and also part of Family Life Matters. So thank you, Pete.
Welcome, Judith.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all viewers. My name is Leonard Chirenge. And like my colleagues, I'm happy to be here and to share my experiences with Family Life Matters. Hope you enjoy the show.
Thank you, and welcome, Leonard. So, there's one interesting thing about our guests here. They all look different, as you can tell, and they all come from different backgrounds. They've got different professions. They've got different hobbies. But one thing and one thing alone brings them together, and that's all matters family. They have a passion about family. We're told that in the beginning, God created a family. Right? And we're trying to understand, what is a model family? Have things changed since ages past? We're going to delve into more of that as we delve into today's topic. I'd like to start with addiction. Judith, could you please define addiction for us and how someone could get addicted?
Thank you very much, Pete. The first thing we know about addiction, it doesn't have a specific definition, but then it is the compulsive continued use of a drug or behavior that harms self but also harms others. The other thing you have to know about addiction, it is a disruptive disease. We have to, emphasize the word disease in this question. And usually it is affecting the brain because there is a release of dopamine happening in your brain. And because of that, Dr. Ann Lambert, gives the analogy of a seesaw, that when you have an addiction in your brain, this is what goes on. The place in your brain where pleasure and pain are released is from the same place. So when you have pain, your brain is looking for a balance. So there will be pleasure. When you're taking alcohol, that is pleasurable. Remember, there has to be homeostasis, the balance that your brain needs. So this is going to happen. You keep taking this drug or this alcohol to keep balancing, this situation. Meaning addictions is abusing dopamine. So that would be the general outlook on the definition of dopamine.
All right, thank you, Judith. So I would like to understand, someone out there, one of the viewers, and a layman like me, would like to understand what is dopamine. Leonard, can you delve into that? What is dopamine? I think Judith started us really well, but I would like you to sort of juice it and make it drinkable to the layman out there.
So, Peter, dopamine is, as Judith has said, a reaction of the brain. We have got in our brain a system of rewards whereby the brain wants to encourage you to do something. So basically for your survival, dopamine in itself is not bad. It's something that is created in a way that it keeps a behavior going to sustain life. For example, dopamine brings you pleasure from eating. So that next time the body knows that by going back to eating, I get the pleasure. Now what drugs does is that dopamine is produced at a certain level and it gives you that high, that satisfaction. But drugs, alcohol, multiplies the dopamine production 10 times. So the body now produces 10 times, and the pleasure that somebody gets from taking drugs brings up 10 times dopamine. That means the body wants more of that. And that leads to addiction in a sense that you take more to reach that high. And unfortunately, when you get to a certain level, you no longer get satisfied by the same amount. So you have to take a little bit more to get back to that high. That's how I can explain dopamine.
No. Thank you very much. I think it sort of makes sense. So what you're saying, in other words, is drugs. So the dopamine is a natural phenomenon that happens in the body, right?
Yes.
To release it at a certain level. Now, when you take drugs, they're sort of replicating the same effect of dopamine, but at very elevated quantities. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Now, I have some statistics here with me. United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, World Drug Report 2023. It says 1 in every 17 people used the drug in 2021. 23% higher than a decade earlier. And here we are looking at the age group of 15 to 64. Drugs is a problem, Leonard. I would like you to share with us. So Judith kicked us off with addiction in general. But I would like to understand, how serious is the drug problem? You know, what are the top 5 out there that people should be aware of?
Thank you, Peter. So as you have stated, drug addiction is also called substance abuse disorder, and it is something that affects the mind and the body.
Is this a medical condition?
Yes, it is now recognized, or it has been recognized for a long time as a medical condition. And the top 5 drugs, there are 2 ways of classifying drugs. The first one is by chemical composition. When we are looking at chemical compositions, we have got 5 types. The first one is alcohol. And with alcohol, these are mostly depressants. It brings you to a high, but it brings you to what we call a low, whereby your feelings, your emotions that were affecting you, they are calmed down. Now with alcohol, we've got 3 types. The common thing that is known is beer. Then you've got your liquor, that is your strong spirits. And then you also have wine. That's alcohol. Then the second types of drugs that we have are opioids. Opioids are these harmful drugs. You have got under opioids, you have got heroin, fentanyl, and the other one I don't know how to pronounce very well. Oxycodone. These are classified as opioids. These are just chemical compositions, and these fall normally under stimulants. That means they give you that high. Then after opioids, we go back to depressants again. Forgive me for the spelling or the pronunciation. Benzodiazepines. These are also classified as depressants. And these are actually meant to help people deal with mental issues in most cases. And unfortunately, because they help you feel low and calm you down, they end up becoming, again, addictive. The third type, which is famous, especially in areas which are in the tropical regions, is cannabis. And cannabis has got 2 types. Again, it also brings you high, and this is your marijuana, and you also have hashish. Then the last type, which is chemical classification of drugs, is barbiturates. And barbiturates are also control the nervous system as well. They bring you low, they calm you down. They are supposed to be drugs to help calm people down. You've got amytal, luminal, the other one I don't know how to pronounce. Then the second classification, forgive me for taking
That's
too
all
much
right.
time.
That's all right. No, I think we're having a download here, class on drugs. I think we'll be experts after your talk.
So we've classified against with the chemical composition. Then the next type of classification is what do they do to the body? And I've already mentioned some of them. We've got depressants. And under depressants, there you have your alcohol, your opiates or opioids, and barbiturates. These are depressants. Then the stimulants, you've got cocaine, meth, and another one is Adderall. It's not very famous, but also very addictive. Then hallucinogens, that's your LSD, PCP. Then in inhalants, this is a very common classifications, especially nowadays, where young kids are now taking in paint, nail polish, inhaling it, which is actually very dangerous, though not as addictive as the others, but in terms of effects to the health, very, very bad. Then, when we are classifying them now, this is the last thing, and I need forgive me for this. We classify drugs both on legal terms. There are legal drugs and there are illegal drugs. In legal drugs, these are drugs that are administered, like your benzos. They are actually supposed to help, but if they are taken too much, they affect health. Then we've got illegal drugs, like your heroin, and marijuana in most cases. Though we now have changes in rules, marijuana is now becoming accepted. So when we are classifying drugs, we've got all these different classes. But when we say illegal, these are not allowed at all. However, even some of the legal and medical drugs are also addictive. So we have to understand what is addiction and how can we overcome and how it affects families.
Yes, I think, thank you very much for that very detailed breakdown of the drugs. I'll be coming back to talk about how these are affecting families. But before that, World Health Organization, the statistics for 2019 are actually telling us that there were 2.6 million deaths caused by alcohol consumption. Solomon, alcohol, what is alcohol? And, how Leonard just talked about drugs and went into some of those classifications and breakdown. What about alcohol and its effects?
Alcohol, is it's a culprit that is really, really responsible for a lot of destruction in family. But before we go into that, it's a chemical. It's an organic substance, actually. In technical terms, we call it ethanol. And it's a very useful thing. We use it to wash our hands. During COVID-19, it became very popular. People were using it. But it is also, it's very dangerous. Because once we consume it, it alters the performance of different organs in our bodies. And it leaves us with this elevated, sometimes spirit. And then, after that, it leaves us very depressed. It could be classified as, alcohol abuse in one sense, or as a disorder.
So just on that, Solomon, so what's the difference between alcohol abuse and alcohol abuse disorder? What's the difference?
So I would say that all people suffering from alcohol disorders have been on a journey of abusing alcohol before. So I'll start with abuse. Abuse is just a pattern of drinking, problematic drinking, if you like, that leaves you with negative consequences, physical, emotional, and also the societal damage. That is, it's not yet at the level where it's you're becoming a slave. It's the master and you're the slave. I'll come back to that. But drinking, it leaves you with this destructive pattern. So people who drink during holidays, those are abusing alcohol. People who drink during football matches, not all of them have this chronic problem, but they're abusing in that sense. So some of the issues it will leave you with, people who cause, there's such a thing as excessive drinking. Do not drink and drive. If the police stop you, you could end up paying a huge fine, causing an accident. These are consequences of abuse. Now, on the other side, we have the danger of the medical term. A disorder is when the medical field classifies it as a real chronic thing that you cannot solve by yourself. Right? So if I cannot solve it by myself, because now I have this compulsive disorder, I keep going back to it. My mind is preoccupied. My brain cannot escape from this thing. Even if I know that it has negative consequences, I cannot liberate myself from doing it because it has changed the way it has become a brain disorder.
So Solomon, it goes back to the dopamine thing, right? So you keep your capacity to take keeps increasing, because you're trying to compensate to have the same effect that you had a few days ago.
That is true, but it's a gradual step. Abusers of alcohol will recover, but here we have the issue of relapse. The fact that the dopamine levels have now the tolerance level keeps changing every time you take alcohol, so it needs more. It leaves you with this void in the brain where it's not enough, and for you to escape your conditions or your problems, you keep going back. And the reason you go back is because you're dependent on that substance.
Thank you, Solomon. I'll just stop you there. So I think we've looked at a few things. We've looked at alcohol, we've looked at drugs, we've looked at addiction. Now, Judith, I would like now to take what the two gentlemen have said and look at family matters, how this is affecting the family right now. So from your perspective, in your line of work, how is addiction affecting the family? You're looking at spouses, you're looking at children.
Before I look at the impact of addiction, there's something I think I forgot to include. They are called the forces of addiction. Because before even we get to how it affects the family, we have to know, how does one identify they actually have a problem? So the forces include craving. Are you craving alcohol? It's just something you want to have. The second one is compulsion. It is something you can't let go of. You feel the need to look for it. So most people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol have a lot of compulsion. The third one is lack of control. You are lacking the control. Today you want to, tomorrow I think I need to increase this. Now something Professor Solomon included was, you can't have this need to let go. It's because of the neuroadaptive gremlins that have to keep a balance in your dopamine levels in the brain. Like I gave the analogy of the seesaw that Dr. Lembek talked about. Your brain is looking for a balance. You've taken 2 bottles maybe of wine, just like Professor Chirenja said. Your brain needs the balance. So once you notice that you're lacking control, signs are you're an addict. Then the last one is consequences. Even when you know there are negative consequences, you still want to go and take it. I'm taking this alcohol, but I may crash into a car. I will still take it. You're an addict. Now to your question.
So before you go there,
Okay.
So Judith, thank you actually for mentioning that. What you're actually saying is it's possible for one to be an addict, but they don't know. Is that?
Yes, it's very possible. And actually, very many addicts never know that they're addicted. We had, I think, a conversation in the last episode of Camera where I was letting us know that the greatest sign that you're addicted to something, usually have no idea to even admit I'm addicted to this thing. So the moment you know the consequences are bad, but you still keep abusing it, chances are you're an addict. Yes. Now, to the question you had addressed earlier on, what is the impact of these drugs and alcohol on the family? The first thing we are seeing is broken homes. And I think with statistics right now, most families are raised, by single parents. Fathers are going to be very absent. Either he had an overdose, or maybe he's in rehab, or because of his bad addiction to alcohol, all his finances are wasted, trying to get his addiction, online. And one thing you'll notice, most of the addicts will not have money for anything else but to satisfy and meet their addiction need more than anything else. And later when we see how do we recover, the addict or the person dealing with this addiction has to be able to say, I have a problem. I need help. It has to be from
So before you come to that, we'll come to that. So
Okay.
maybe, thank you very much. So you're I think what you've talked about is broken families. I think that's that's
broken
one
families.
of the symptoms.
Yes.
So Leonard, specifically with drugs, how do we end up with broken families?
Thank you for that question, Peter. I think statistics speaks for themselves. First of all, we should come to the statistics. If you are looking at alcohol use or misuse, as has been defined by Solomon, 400 million people are estimated between age 15 and above in the world to be using alcohol. That is 7% of the global population, which means 1 in every 14, 1 in every 13. That shows you that most families have got an addict one way or the other. Now, what does this mean? When you are addicted to alcohol or drugs, you need financial capacity to buy those drugs. Financial capacity which you should have been dedicated to other things in the family. If you are a father, you're supposed to provide school fees, pay rent, pay mortgage. You no longer dedicate the finances to that, and then you are dedicating to buy drugs. Worse still, drugs affect the way you coordinate your mind. You now focus on things that are mostly useless, because you will find out, statistics have shown that there's a causal relationship between drugs and very bad behaviors like prostitution. You are now dedicating your money not only on buying the drugs, but on engaging in prostitution and the consequences that are associated with that. You get HIV, you get gonorrhea, you now need to go and pay more money for medical attention. So there are so many things. Then there's violence, gender-based violence at home. You are now fighting your spouse because they are telling you you are an addict. You are now getting angry at your children because you are drunk. So drug addiction has got so many complications. You are no longer present for your children. Why? Because you are now in love with drugs. You are now in love with alcohol. I've got an anecdote which I had where an African fellow, a friend of mine, saying, you know what, my friend, I am not worried about any relationship with my parents, my kids, my wife, because I have got something that loves me. Beer loves me.
Oh dear.
Beer will not shout at me if I come at 11. Beer doesn't mind if I ignore it for 2 hours. Beer will never call me. I go to beer. So I love my... Can you see what the relationship is being broken at home? You are now dedicating on things that are dedicating your time, your effort, your finances on things that are actually destroying your health. Last thing. You see, alcohol, for example, is an ethanol. It is responsible for 200 diseases related to it. It is causing cardiovascular complications. It's killing people. That's just alcohol. You go to opioids. You go to the other addictions. They are killing just on the health aspect of the one. And remember, most accidents that have been recorded are alcohol related, and they don't kill the one who is drunk. They actually kill innocent bystanders. So when you look at that, we can see that this is a problem that we need to deal with at a family level and even at a societal level.
Actually, just on that, Leonard, again, World Health Organization statistics, just to add, I think, to affirm what you just said there, right? 28% of these 3 million deaths in 2016, okay, 28% were from injuries, so road traffic accidents, 21% digestive diseases, 19%, you mentioned cardiovascular, 13% infectious diseases, HIVs and all that, and a whopping 12% cancers. It is a problem. Now, Dr. Solomon, addiction. Is it a basis to divorce a spouse?
That is very exciting. Actually, I was a little bit swamped into the, the foregoing discussion. Can you come again? Can you just
so
paraphrase?
Your spouse, my spouse has got a big alcohol addiction problem, which is causing the family to break down. What
Right.
Leonard just mentioned there. Is that a basis to divorce?
Well, that is like a conundrum. It's a black box, and many people would vote yes, others might vote no on the subject. But I would say that it depends on the circumstances. The consequences of alcohol leave exhaustion, not just for the one consuming it, but for the family. If there is domestic violence and there is a real threat for human life, definitely your safety comes first, and it's important that you seek help and sort of distance yourself from a relationship that is violent. Even your children, you have to take them out of harm's way. Divorce maybe is an extreme thing that cannot be decided overnight, but there has to be steps that are taken to help this person, but also to help yourself. children is what I wanted to talk about. If the children, children are victims of these things, their self-esteem goes down, performance in school goes down. They're also more likely to be addicts and to be abusers of alcohol if they're left to thrive in an environment that is toxic. Children will be, and because of this, they're left to step in to fill the void of parents that are absent from home or abusers of alcohol. We've seen children who will tend for their families, who will be forced into prostitution, who will take decisions on behalf of everyone else. Why? Because the father and the mother, or mostly in most cases the father, is absent. If you ask me if divorce will solve this, I may not have the answer now, but I'm showing you a picture that may coerce or persuade someone to take this kind of steps. Before I wrap it up.
30 seconds, because we're about to go for a break. So
go
ahead,
yeah,
30 seconds.
I just want to say also the medical consequences that come with this are huge. If we live in Africa especially, our communities are small and everybody knows everybody else. So if your father is a drunkard, as children, you're going to be looked down upon. As someone of a lower status. If you're wife of an abusing husband of alcohol, they'll call you from time to time, come and pick your property from the bar. If this happens many times, you're going to feel that your self-worth is not. In any community, you'll be like the best. And if you ask me if divorce is a solution, many people will tick yes. But for me, I think that the person really needs help.
So just on that, I think after the break, we'll be looking at help. How do we get help?
Pete, can I add something?
For the unfortunately, you come and chip in after the break.
Okay, sure.
So when we come back, we'll look at how does the addict get help, and how does the family, those around the addict, how can they get help, and how can they help the addict themselves? So stand by, dear viewers. Feel free to share your comments, to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll see you just in a bit. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be looking at alcohol and drug addiction. Recognizing the grip of alcohol and drug addiction is the first step towards change. It is essential that you understand these substances can cloud your potential and diminish your joy. You have the strength to break free from the cycle, seek support, embrace healthier choices, and remember that every effort makes a step towards reclaiming your life. Your journey to recovery can lead to a brighter, more fulfilling future. Believe in yourself and take that first step today. You got that, my dear. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome back, viewers. You are on Family Matters, where all things family are discussed, and today's topic is on addiction, and specifically alcohol and drug addiction. With me here in the studio, I have Solomon, I have Judith, and I have Leonard. So in this segment of the program, we'd like to look at how to get help for people who've been directly affected, that is, people who have an addict in the family. How do they get help? And how does the addict themselves get help? Now, again, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime World Drug Report 2023. These are some of the statistics around the most problematic drugs, by geographical location. So in Europe, it's opioids, the most problematic. In Latin America, it's cocaine. In Africa, it's cannabis. Southeast Asia, it's meth. Now, Leonard, the addict. Let's start with the addict themselves. How do they start? What? This is a big problem as we've defined it, right? Where do they start? The addict. And Solomon, I would like you to look at those around the addict. Let's say the spouse, the children. Where do they start? And after that, I'll come to you, Judith. I would like you to address the do's and don'ts, when you're looking at the addict themselves, but also when you're looking at those around the addict. Leonard, please kick us off.
Thank you for that question. One thing that we must recognize is that addiction is a health disorder. It's actually recognized as a disease. So if you are an addict, the first thing you must know is that your condition is recognized as a disease. You are a victim of a situation there are so many things that might have caused it. So if we take an understanding as addicts to know that I am not guilty, but rather I need help, because sometimes as an addict you feel I am guilty, I'm going to be arrested, I use marijuana. But it's actually a medical condition that needs help. So the first step is acknowledging that you have got a problem, and this is not easy. But that's the first and key step. No matter what others can say, we can have these shows so many times, but as long as you, as somebody who's taking these drugs, do not admit that there's a problem, you cannot seek help. So for me, the one who is affected, number one, no, it's a disease, it needs to be treated. Acknowledge it as such, and then you can seek help. There are so many avenues of help. First is connecting with your family. Open up to them about the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers, my wife, I have this problem. I abuse alcohol. Not abuse, I misuse alcohol. And I need a way out of it. And if they cannot offer you help, there's always professional help. There's Alcoholics Anonymous. There are several other organizations that are out there. You can even go to any clinic. There's always a counselor waiting patiently, and they will not judge you. They will listen to your problem, and they will help you map a way forward. And if you have a relapse, know that it is expected when we are going through the recovery stage. So don't judge yourself too much, but seek help as soon as possible.
Excellent, Leonard. I think you hit the nail on the head by saying, the very first step is to acknowledge that there is a problem, to acknowledge that this is a medical condition that needs help. Thank you very much. Solomon, what about those around the family?
Actually,
the spouse, the children.
So the assumption is that these are not drinkers, which is probably a good thing. But first and foremost, for as long as the problem is there, everybody is affected. The drinker and those around him will be affected. So we have the people that are support, or the support cast, or the people in the background. We have to step up to help the person, because if they feel better, then our condition also becomes better. The biggest problem that challenges the people around the family is the mental faculties and the mental depression that they have to deal with. Looking after a smelly alcoholic is not an easy thing. You have to get a little bit, if you're the spouse, a wife that is in a home living with an alcoholic, you have to find ways of improving the hygiene in the home, even as far as actually stepping up the rules a little bit. Close the fridge. Certain things are not allowed. You can even go as far as really helping this person not to go to some places. So I've even seen some people withdrawing the ATM card completely, if it needs, because if there is no money, at least there will be one less drink per day, and that will go a long way. Of course, some of these are extreme, but the point is we have to salvage our own mental health. Now, he talked about Alcohol Anonymous. I would say there are so many other communities of wives or spouses that are sharing common problems. Some of them have gone through this, they've escaped, the families are reunited again. So there's a lot of archive information that you can go and read up. If you have a child that is affected, there are people who have recovered. So there's a lot of experiential help that you can get from this. There are even what they call recovery apps. Apps where you log in, you explain your problem, and someone, we have AI these days. AI, if you really explain your problem, sometimes it can craft a very good plan for you and say, if your husband doesn't drinks, what time of the day do they drink? Do they drink more over the weekend? Are they violent? And so on and so forth. And these apps are actually sanctioned by the government, most of them, so they can really structure a plan for you to get you on a long-term or short-term recovery plan for your own mental health, your own children, and your spouse.
Thank you very much, Solomon. I'll come back to you in a bit. I would like you to think about how can a parent unknowingly enable addiction. Think about that. But for now, Judith, do's and don'ts.
The first one is we have to admit that we are living in a society that is saturated by dopamine, and we are being encouraged by what we are watching every single day. Because remember, addiction is not just drug, even behavior becomes very addictive, social media. So the first acknowledgement is our society is saturated by dopamine. So what are we going to do as society, but also as you, the person who has self-awareness? Dr. Nora Volterwick, I think she's an expert in addiction. She says self-awareness is important. I have to know with small things, I'm addicted to my phone, so I need to get replacement. So the first step for the addict themselves and the people around them, get a replacement. Then Dr. Ann Lambert, who's an expert in dopamine, I think she even has a book on dopamine. She says, according to the clients she's had or her patients, she gives them a 30-day abstinence program. So start by abstaining for 30 days from whatever it is you have, either drugs or alcohol, even just behavior. 30 days. And usually after 30 days, if you can do that with help, there is a place to start from. So
I guess that is under medical supervision.
Well,
I'm
yes,
assuming,
under
right?
medical supervision. Okay. But then I'd mentioned at first self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
However, I want to reiterate that there's no such thing as self-medication. These are pertinent issues. Self-medication is difficult. I'm not saying just abstain like you are starting, but if you recognize, I think there's a problem with me.
Yeah.
I want to start this journey.
Yeah.
Now reach out for help as the addict.
Yeah.
Where can I find help? My colleagues have given, the different apps you can have, or even communities, or reach out to an accountability partner. For me, that comes first. Reach out to somebody you trust with yourself. You trust with your, pertinent secrets. They would never judge me. So if it is, you're not sure your spouse will judge you because this is a family setting. Maybe when you were, courting, your partner told you, I'm not going to deal with somebody with alcohol, or maybe with a drug problem. So have an accountability partner. With your accountability partner, they'll be able to look for help that is tailored for you. Not every help is tailored for an addict or for somebody dealing, with a condition. So I've mentioned self-awareness is very important.
Right.
The second thing was
accountability partner.
Accountability partners.
A replacement. You talked
replacement,
about replacement.
Yes. Replacements are very important, especially for a society with so many, there's
So Judith,
potencies
let's
a
make
lot.
it practical.
Okay.
So replacement, I have a alcohol problem. So what would you suggest
Get
as a
active.
replacement?
Find society. You're maybe working out. If your local community maybe has, voluntary work they are doing, go participate in this work. If, for example, there's people who are predisposed genetically to loving extremes. So maybe the reason you are taking alcohol is because you're predisposed. Let's note that. You're predisposed to extreme things in life. Maybe it is extreme sports you like. So find things that will give you dopamine, your dopamine, surges high. If it is maybe sports, get involved in a sports. I know with sports you have to have discipline. If it's football, you have to work out every single day. Find purpose. Not that it is going to be a very easy thing, because some people tend to think alcoholics or drug addicts do not have willpower. From recent research, that is actually not true. You may have willpower to say, I want to let go. But because of the potency, you have been you've been pushed to enjoy this. It's the only thing that gives you comfort from maybe your stress. The best thing will be find a replacement that gives you purpose. Whatever it is that will not harm you. You may relapse, but keep trying every single day. And also for the family, before my colleague adds, is continue encouraging help. It's okay. I fall down. I will rise up. I don't know if that is practical.
No, this is excellent things. Leonard, I saw you nodding. I think you have something beneath your sleeves there.
I was nodding because this is an area that is of interest to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because on the do's, the first thing, she has mentioned the do's very well. You should first of all acknowledge that you have a problem. Then the second thing is you must find a substitute or replacement. Then you must seek help from other quarters, not just your family, and make sure that you identify the trigger.
Excellent. That's important.
What triggers you to want alcohol? What triggers you to want drugs? When you have identified the trigger, you are one step closer to finding a solution and finding assistance. You might know this triggers me. I must stay away from soccer because that's where I drink. Then you stay away. Then you find assistance from your support. The families, I'm now coming to the families. What do families do? One, you must offer support. Even if they smell, Solomon. They are still your family. We still need to support them. Even if they are still taking the drugs, they are having relapse, we still need to support. Another do for the family, seek help, because sometimes you are not able.
Yes.
We are not professionals.
Yes.
We have trained people who have got skills to deal with such things. So there's a certain level where even the family and friend support stops.
Yes.
And some professionals have to take in. Don'ts. Family, do not judge. Do not use words like junkie, he's a drunkard. You are told, come and pick your property. You say, that's my father. That's not property. He's still my father, even if he's drunk. You know, there's a certain book called the Bible which says, honor your father and mother. It doesn't matter if the father is drunk or not in that context. So we should honor our parents in whichever culture and context. It's still applicable. So it doesn't matter if my parent is a drunkard and if my child is a drunkard. In our culture, we say when a mad person dances well to a drum, everyone claps. So even if a drunkard, if they do something well, we clap. That's forming the encouragement. So we don't say, oh, it's a drunkard. No matter how well he's dancing, we don't clap. So the don'ts, don't judge, do support. That's all I wanted to say.
No. This is really, I'm learning a lot. I'm really, really learning a lot. And I do believe and I do hope that the viewers are also picking up a few things there. Now, Solomon, I'm coming back to you. So how can a parent unknowingly enable addiction? And before you take that, Judith, I would like you to address, the effects of low levels of dopamine and the effects of high levels of dopamine. I'm talking about natural dopamine.
Okay.
Then, Leonard, I would like you to look at, how do I enhance that dopamine release, if it's at all possible, without reverting to the unnatural ways like drugs and alcohol? So, Solomon, how can a parent unknowingly enable?
Well, some famous philosophers said people perish for lack of knowledge. One of the things that have been, crystallized very well is the idea of do's and don'ts. Sometimes we become accomplices to a crime unknowingly.
Yes.
You know that your partner is slowly getting down to the road of destruction, and you know that the consequences can be dire when they actually continue drinking, but you say nothing about it. You lack the willpower to address this issue while it is still, growing. It would be better to sit down on a cross table and say, I think this drinking problem, we as a family, we're not very comfortable with that. Or probably it leads us to this in a very friendly way, on a round table discussion. If you don't do that, then you're welcoming the consequences. And sometimes it will be too late. That's one. Two, parents who invite these drinking habits into their family are inadvertently also promoting this in the home. If your family, a father who does not provide food and the only thing in the fridge available is alcohol, children are more likely to consume that because they're hungry. The mother is hungry. There's no food. You're promoting this. Also scientifically, Mayo Clinic and these are the very good sites of medical information. It is possible that as a father or someone who consumed a lot of alcohol, I'm more likely to pass on my genetic makeup that is more predisposed to the next generation. My children are more likely to be abusers of alcohol if I was one. For very good reasons. Why? Because alcohol modifies our genetic makeup. Alcohol, alters a lot of things in our mind, so that even at the time of procreation, we might pass on, genes that have been altered in one way or another. Not for everyone, but it does happen. So it could be a cross-generational thing. where we are in society, but some people are more prone, are more susceptible to abuse alcohol than others, just because of what happened in the previous generation. Sometimes even the jobs we do are inviting. You live, the communities we live in, you live next to a bar. There's a lot of loud music and football happening just 2-3 meters, and you're not even in the home. You come back late. What do you expect the children and the neighbors to do? So all these things, we have to take decisions. Sometimes, as painful as it might be, changing a job, changing where you live, and a few other things might mean saving your life and the generation after that.
True. I just want to make it absolutely clear to the viewers that my team here, my guests here, are not against football or soccer, because it's come up a few times, as an example. And Solomon, thank you very much. The other thing I was thinking about is sometimes, I know that my child is prone to abuse drugs, and they come for pocket cash, and I keep feeding that. I'm actually feeding them, and knowing I think I'm providing, I'm giving love, but unfortunately that is going and being placed in the wrong areas. But no, thank you very much. What?
Just before you, we talked about sometimes when you impact these things on a young generation, it becomes almost unforgivable. And maybe we'll address this at some time. Yes, this is my father, he's an alcoholic. But because of the torment and the torture I went through, there is this big divide in the family that is almost irreconcilable. Even when the children are grown, they will not talk to, they will not pick phones. They say, that is not my father. It's a very bad thing, but it is difficult to understand what these people went through as they were growing up. And sometimes they need more help than, as he said, sometimes you need professional help that really will extricate you, to heal you, because you have this burning thing, and perhaps that will set you on a journey as a person who was affected by someone that is alcoholic.
What you said touched me there, when you said, sometimes some of these things, for example, what alcohol would do to the brain, it will shrink it and especially affect the gray matter, right? And how that can be passed on to the unborn baby.
No, it does. It does. And the obvious, even if it's not the next generation, we've talked of carcinogens. In the liver, when the liver metabolizes this, it releases a chemical called analdehyde. And this is a carcinogen. It's a carcinogen. Carcinogens are fast-moving, bombarding chemicals that will quickly modify DNA and cause cancer. That alone is already a modification.
Yes.
But you can imagine over a long period of time, if you've started drinking before you have children and so on and so forth, you are likely to have these epigenetic modifications in your DNA. And
really, really powerful. Judith, please. Low levels of dopamine, high levels of dopamine. If you can give examples of maybe what type of conditions would manifest. Before Leonard looks at, okay, if I have low levels, how do I bring it up? Or if I have high levels, how do I moderate that naturally?
When we are looking at dopamine, we have to know it's a good feel, hormone in your body. Your brain releases it because it is rewarding you for something you are doing. So having said that, how can I enhance my dopamine? What can I do that makes me feel good? The question will come to, back to yourself. What is it that I love? What are my passions? When I work out, I get dopamine. When I cook food I love, I get dopamine. When I write my exam, because I studied so hard for it, I get dopamine. Certain things may be very boring, but you have to be very creative. And our brain is so adaptable. Look at the world we are living in. It is a factor of the brain that we have. So one has to start, I think there's something going called, self-affirmation. I can do it. I'm going to overcome this addiction. So the best ways to get dopamine or increase levels is to do things that make you happy. I know this can be taken out of context. Look at things that give you a reward system. When you look at your children, they're going to be proud of me. I'm a father. How am I going to increase dopamine? Look for other fathers. There are social groups outside there. Go work with them. Work on a project. When you finish your project at work, you're going to be excited. That's how dopamine usually is released.
So Judith,
you have to work hard. As I conclude, you have to work hard to get dopamine. That is what I'm trying to say. So, whatever activities that you do, they have to be in line with your passion. If your passion is something that goes back to what I mentioned, bad consequences, and you're happy with them, then there's a question about that. Now, on the other flip side of what are the negative sides of dopamine? Remember, addiction is abusing dopamine. So the negative consequences are you'll want to increase your surge for, euphoria, for maybe oxytocin. Find a baby to love, I think also having children also give dopamine. Just because moms have babies and giving oxytocin.
Do you have children, Judy?
No, I do not have children. But then they're
qualified then to talk about
also pets. Get a pet, live with a pet, look after your pet. You're actually going to get dopamine. Maybe you're a plant parent. Look after plants, go outside in your community, help young people, nurture them. And when you look at the recovery process of people with addiction, they always put people who have been addicted to help others because they understand what the journey feels like.
Yeah.
They're not speaking from a space where they understand what is going on. Yes.
You know why I was laughing? Because you're actually answering. You didn't answer your question. You're answering Leonard's question.
And I wanted to add something small.
Professor Solomon could help me answer my question if I...
No, I just wanted to say something that...
But good.
Just very quickly.
Okay,
I mean, I'm just... it's an interlude here.
Yeah.
It's a reward system after all.
Yes.
But humans don't need to do a lot to be rewarded. It's just little steps, baby steps, If I was taking... you talked of this 30-day program kind of thing.
Yes.
If I've been someone drinking on a daily or after every 2 days, if I drink one less bottle, that is going to do a whole lot, not just for me, but for the whole family. Everybody will be clapping. Daddy, you were taking 10, now we're at 9. And then tomorrow you're at 8. What is happening is that the brain is learning to adapt.
But also, Solomon, right, as you said, also the family members should acknowledge that. I think you talked about it, Leonard. Yes, it's a small step, but it needs to be acknowledged, and that actually makes a good feel factor. That's not natural dopamine coming through. Leonard, Judith answered your question, but maybe quickly, we're now coming to a close. Try to answer her question now.
What was the question?
Her question was, how does low levels of dopamine or high levels of dopamine manifest, in an individual? For example, if you have a low level, you'd feel depressed. Yeah, something like this. How because what she talked about, right, is now how to sort of correct this, how to enhance it naturally.
Okay.
So what other examples, can we give of low or high levels of natural dopamine? How would it manifest itself?
Yeah, actually it's clinical. Solomon would be the best expert at that. But if you are depressed, that's when you are sometimes feelings of suicide. And if you are having a high, it might be a mental situation on you, that this guy has got a spectrum in terms of mental issues and might seek psychiatrical help. That's why we give those drugs to bring down the brain activities and lower them, or then you go for stimulants. So now if we realize that there are two ways of addressing them. If they are not too high, we can actually address them by taking the steps. Exercising, for example, can bring you the rewards. Taking calming down sessions, talking to your spouse, talking to your family, looking at things that calm you down. But if you cannot achieve that through the natural processes, we might seek medical help.
Excellent.
With controlled use of the drugs. Because at the end of the day, we need to balance the dopamine.
Yes.
It should not be too high. It should not be too low.
And
I can
Solomon.
chip in just real quick that in addition to that, depression is really, this is not a session, but it's a real problem. And there is another chemical we didn't talk so much about. It's called serotonin, which is directly responsible for this issue. When you have this imbalance of serotonin in your brain, you're more likely to be depressed. And one of the signs is being erratic, uncontrolled behavior, unpredictable, chaotic behavior, being withdrawn, suddenly or eventually from your people, and signs of hopelessness. Basically, you don't see any value in some of the things you don't do. Loss of direction,
Yeah.
ambition, all these things. Now, they contend, but also food.
Yeah.
Things like sunlight. You know, some of us, we live if you travel, have you ever traveled for long distances? For example, 24 hours, 36 hours moving from this country, you will be depressed. Why? Because you don't have, you're confined in the airport, your levels of sunlight has gone down, vitamin D, things are not balanced. Immediately you'll be depressed.
I want to jump in.
Yeah, I can see now it's getting excited. It's getting exciting in this place.
It's not only about traveling.
Yeah.
People are staying indoors too much,
Yeah.
especially let's look at when we had the pandemic, COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened? We had high levels of depression, rising cases, right?
yes.
Because people were staying inside. They were not getting fresh air, they were not getting sunlight, and some were not exercising. And that caused us problems. So I'm just agreeing with him on that one.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I can see
I think I've
you're more
figured
energized.
out.
You have high levels of dopamine.
I think I've figured out how to answer my question. Another thing would be anger. You have bursts of anger.
Yes.
That's also a very good sign, your dopamine levels, are very down. There's a lot of anger, uncontrolled behavior. You want to have your way with everything. Suddenly you think you are right. All of you are telling lies. And when you notice when you have issues with addiction, most of the time you are very smart. You know how to figure out your way around everything. So anger, uncontrolled behavior. Then even hormonal imbalances will happen to you because suddenly you're very happy today, tomorrow you're erratic, you have emotional issues. Then another thing, you find it difficult to gel with people. I think it's a physiological problem, but also, psychological. You are struggling to understand your feelings and emotions as well.
Thank you. So for our viewers, we're coming to a close now. In terms of help, right? So for alcohol addiction, there is Alcoholics Anonymous. There are actually several rehabilitation options out there. Okay, Leonard talked about actually seeking medical help. This can be very, very important. Now, if you're not sure, please feel free to drop us a note. We have got professionals within our team who will link you, to the right option that may be suitable for you. So please drop us a note, leave a comment, and we treat confidentiality in the highest regard. There are also online addiction counseling sessions. There's betterhelp.com. You go there, you explain your problem electronically, and they'll sort of give you options. And there are several support groups of people in recovery mode who we would be able to link you with. So there is a ton of help out there. I'd like to end with what Solomon started. There is a group of people who've started a program that is called New Start. So basically, it's looking at nutrition, okay? It's looking at sunlight. It's looking at temperament, and so on and so forth. So there are a number of things, that we can do to actually enhance our dopamine levels. As we come to a close, 30 seconds for each guest here. Your closing thoughts. Solomon.
I'll just close off with the idea that for as long as you're still fighting, as long as you're alive, you have an opportunity to fight. It's not too late to get off this idea of getting addicted. You can still jump off that bandwagon and get yourself started on a journey of full recovery.
Thank you, Solomon. Judith.
My takeaway for everybody who has been listening is admit I actually have a problem and I need help. I think it's very important when you admit you have a problem, because then that's the first step, for help. After admitting I have a problem, look for an accountability partner. It could be an expert or could be somebody you trust. With accountability, you can fight this. And try, what Dr. Anna Lembek, gives. A 30-day abstinence, whatever it is you're going through. If it's difficult, try with your accountability partner or seek for help. And it is not worth it, to be honest. You can do much better. You are a great person. You are a great father. You are a great wife. You're a great child. The future is bright for you if you only say, I'm willing to take the step and do the best with myself. There's great potential in you and you can do it. That would be my take.
Thank you, Judith. Leonard.
Because Judy has taken more than 30 seconds. We must understand that addiction is a disease. And you should not feel guilty for being sick. And if it's a disease, there is help, there is cure. So find help and get cured of the disease so that you live a happy life. Remember, it's not about yourself. It's about the people around you, your family, your friends, your work colleagues. If not for yourself, get healed for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. I've really enjoyed myself with you guys. You know, you've made my day really lively, and I hope our viewers learned one or two things here. So please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, das Vidania. The future is indeed bright. See you next time.